Yeah, Jen and Ben, usually people who are having to get by on unemployment are already hurting. Imagine checking your bank account and learning you're not even getting that. That has apparently happened to lots of people here in Connecticut, and these lawmakers want to know why. Unemployment recipients who choose to receive payments by direct deposit file their personal banking information with the Department of Labor. Recently, large numbers of recipients here in Connecticut have learned their banking information was changed without their knowledge or consent. The direct deposit pointed to a bogus Wells Fargo account, that important unemployment check never arriving in the right hands. Now, Republican Senators Craig Minor of Litchfield and Joe Paletta of Watertown are calling for an immediate hearing before the General Assembly's Labor and Public Employees Committee to get to the bottom of the issue.
We're asking for an informational hearing with members of the agency so that we can learn more about what happened, how long they've known it, how many people might be affected.
Minor says he's been working with his constituents since last spring on unemployment problems, and at least one of his constituents has complained of this very problem. He says he's not hurling accusations at DOL, but also says the state seems to be putting the blame on the victims.
I will tell you that I have seen some transmissions from the Department of Labor relative to the issues that we're aware of, where it almost makes it sound as though the agency is claiming my constituent or someone else's constituent is at fault here.
During Governor Lamont's coronavirus briefing, we asked him about the unemployment problem.
I can tell you that with the CARES Act and all the money that came out of the federal government over the last 6 months, there's been extraordinary cyber hacking around the country. I can tell you the DOL is tracking this very carefully.
The governor went on to encourage unemployment recipients to change their passwords regularly and do everything they can to guard their identity. In the meantime, Senator Minor thinks the state needs to restore the missing payments to their intended recipients. Wells Fargo released a statement confirming the account in question here is not a real Wells Fargo account and that its system was not hacked. A spokeswoman for the Department of Labor released a statement saying CTDOL is not aware of any intrusion into our databases. We are aware of and investigating fraud attempts. Brent Harden, Fox 61 News. Jen?